Hello, my name is Shaheen Sayadi, doing this program on Shaheen.one Light. You can see this program on my YouTube channel, and it goes live on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter whenever it's programmed. And while ago, I decided to do this because I feel that there's a serious vacancy that needs to be occupied by artists of color online for having conversations about whatever they like. For me, it's about arts and culture and the politics of the day and what's happening in our communities and what's happening to our lives. And and I want to make sure that we're having conversations, not debates or not interviews, but conversations that shows my point of view and also people that I invite to talk, their point of view, things that we don't usually hear and see in our mainstream media. Today, I have a very special person, and this is coming after a series of conversations that we've been doing about the status of the treaties and the treaty rights of the indigenous people of Eastern Canada, Eastern Turtle Island, and Canada. I'm just going to bring my friend on, and we'll take it from there. Good day, sir.
Hello, Shaheen. How are you?
How are you? This is Brian Francis, everybody. I know Brian for a long time. Thank you very much for willing to do this. I'm very glad we finally managed to find the time to do this, Brian.
Yes, thank you for having me.
Of course. But before we do anything, Brian, I wanna read something for everybody.
Sure.
Um, I think this is a very nice opening to our talk. I am me. I am who I believe to be. I only see me through my own eyes, my own mind, and my own thoughts. I don't think that I have always known who I was. Actually, for a very long time, I am sure I didn't. For a long time, I felt like a lost soul trying to find myself for all my life. And these are your words, Brian.
Yes.
Brian, please tell us who you are.
Well, my Christian name, I guess, is Brian Francis. My traditional spirit name is Wabeg Muin, which means the white bear. And in ceremony, that's the name that I use. Um, the words that you've just read are basically a summation, I guess, and it applies to a lot of Indigenous people, First Nations people here in Canada, where a lot of us are lost um, through colonization, through history, through legislation, what have you. A lot of our ways have been basically annihilated. We are just remnants of who we are, who we were as a people.
Mm.
But we were very resilient people. And I'm very proud to say that I still speak the ancient language that my ancestors spoke. Having said that, we are at a very critical point in our lives where there is a tremendous chance that that language will be gone. Um,
Brian, before we get more into the details of the status of the people, tell us a little bit more about yourself, your family, your nation, and where you are, and what you do.
Okay. Well, I'm not one to really speak about myself. I tend to because I don't feel that I'm really that much of an interesting person. I don't think so. I don't. I try
Well,
not to.
I certainly think you are, and I think a lot of people do. And I see a lot of people here now, and I just want to. I'm sorry for interrupting, Brian. I just want to ask people. We're doing very important conversations on these talks, and
Mhm,
we need as much help as possible to get these words out. It's
exactly.
important that these words get out. So if you can, if it's possible for you, you're listening, you're watching right now, or if you're going to see this later, please share and please talk about these issues. Thank you. You can right now you can share, and more people will see it. Um, and Brian, you're a filmmaker, you're a writer. We're going to talk about your book that just came out. You have accomplished
Mhm.
quite a lot of things, and I really want people to know more about that.
Yeah. Well, I got started in filmmaking it's about 20 years ago now, and it basically started off um, as a I saw it as a venue for me to highlight our people in a positive way.
Mhm.
Um, so I got involved in film, television and film, and
And Brian, when you say your people, who are they?
I should explain that as well. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
I'm from the Mi'kmaq Nation in
Okay.
eastern New Brunswick,
Mhm.
Canada, and we are probably we have about 35,000 members throughout Atlantic Canada. We are members of the Wabanaki people. The Wabanaki member tribes are belong to a confederacy called the Wabanaki Confederacy, and we're made up. Wabanaki means the place of the where the sun rises. So we're the first ones that greet the sun in the morning and are blessed by the sun in the morning. Um, so that's who I am as far as my indigenous connection is concerned. I was born and raised in Osiboktuk, New Brunswick. I have come from a family of 10 siblings. My father, Anthony Francis, really dedicated his life to fighting for the preservation of our rights, the rights of our people. And he was a he was a great man who really devoted his life to his people, our people. And so that's who we are. You may have heard of us recently through the recent fishing disputes that are going on in Nova Scotia. But we have a long history. We are I guess, the people that have been in contact with uh, the newcomers for the longest period of time because when they arrived on our shores. So throughout that history, we've survived, I guess, and we've persevered, and we've managed to still maintain some of our culture and language and ceremony, uh, that type of thing. So it's really, I think it's a very valuable um, and critical um, that we maintain our identity
Mhm.
and we pass that on to our young people because it's you know it's hard. Life is hard enough as it is, but then when you have no identity and no self-esteem, then it makes it harder. It makes people lost. So going back to the words you shared,
Mhm.
for a long time I was lost because I basically knew nothing about my culture. I basically knew nothing of who I was. Um, I knew I spoke a different language. I know I come from a different. environment than mainstream society. Uh,
And I understand from people that I have asked about you and your family, you speak Mi'kmaq very well. Is that?
yes, it's my first language, and recently I've actually been appointed as an official translator for the Canadian Parliament and the House of Commons and the Senate. So, like I said, I don't like to talk about myself, but it was
Yeah.
history.
But
Um,
I'm very because I think it's very important. Just like you said, Brian, I think it's very important. I'm very glad you mentioned your father, your family, and I want to ask. I'm insisting on this that we know more about you and the family. I think this is very important to people. I think the fact that you speak uh, uh, Mi'kmaq language fluently and you're official translator now, the credit goes to who? I saw her picture holding your book so proudly the other day.
that was my mother. I presented my book to my mother. She's 96 years old, and she's the oldest. She's the oldest member of our community. Um, and she's been a tremendous anchor to our family.
Mhm.
She was an anchor to my father throughout his career, and she's basically maintained the integrity of the family throughout all these years. She's raised 10 children, and we're very proud to still have her with us. And
And her
hopefully that
name,
she.
Brian, tell us her name.
Her name is Louise
Right,
Francis.
Francis.
Yeah,
And
she's probably not on.
every time I see her picture, she has this beautiful, very big, great smile on her face. It's like always welcoming you to her home and her place.
Yes.
Every time I see her picture, that you guys share, your family share on social media, I always get that feeling from her.
Yeah, no, she's a wonderful person, very open, very friendly, very warm. She'll help anybody, and she's not only done that throughout our lives, like we see her through her actions, and she's very she'll give anything to anybody who might need it, and we're very proud of her and very lucky to have a woman like that in our lives.
Brian, would you say that the way your mother is and the way your mother raised you and your siblings is pretty much the way Mi'kmaq people have been to others?
It it is a it is a very common trait, I guess, amongst Mi'kmaq people. We are a very um, giving people, a very forgiving people as well. Um, we are not people that take life too seriously. We live our lives almost on a day-to-day basis. Um, we live our lives as if it was our last day on earth, and it's kind of a traditional thing or a cultural thing where we try not to make plans for too far ahead, because I guess the belief is that we don't know if we're going to be here to see those plans. So it's kind of a unique culture, a unique trait, and it's part of our Mi'kmaq way, I guess. You'll be welcomed in their homes at any time. You'll be made to feel welcome. You'd be told to make yourself at home, and whatever we have, basically we share with anybody who may need anything. So that's part of our constitution, I guess, is probably just to respect, I guess, respect other human beings. It doesn't matter what color, what race, what nationality you are. You are a human being, and we all deserve the same amount of respect. That would be given to anybody.
Brian, I was witness to one of your films as it was being made, but you have made other films. Can you tell us a little bit about your films? I want to move talking about your book and where we started off with.
Well, I started my film career, I guess, with as it was kind of a fluke actually. Um, I I um, I had this project in mind, and at that time, APTN, which is the Aboriginal People's Television Network here in Canada, was just coming on board. They were looking for new programming, and I just wrote a quick proposal. It was for a documentary, and I submitted it, and it was on a meeting between an author from New York City and uh, I guess a musician here in uh, New Brunswick,
Hmm.
Hubert Francis, my brother,
Your brother.
and they connected in New York, and we wanted to make a documentary about this unique meeting because she had written a book called Badlands, and throughout the book there was I guess talk about native spirituality and um, things that she didn't really understand, but they had came to her throughout her writing the book. And when she met Hubert, Hubert was basically deciphering,
Mm.
if you will, the messages that she was receiving.
Mm.
So we thought this was interesting. So we I drafted a proposal and I sent it into the Aboriginal People's Television Network. And a few weeks later, they got back to me and they said, "Well, if you can come up with 12 more of these documentaries, we'll give you a TV series."
Mm.
And at the time, I didn't know what that meant. So I I wrote I come up with 12 subjects and I sent it in and I got a TV series that lasted for 3 seasons. And throughout that time, I kind of had to become a writer,
Mm.
uh, which I had never wrote for. I never did creative writing in my life. I did some analytical writing, but not for stories or TV or anything. Um, and then after that, I got to be a director on a 1 hour show documentary for CBC called Circle of Justice,
Mm.
and it was a produced by Diane Barnes out of PEI, and I directed the documentary, and it was about traditional Native people who they weren't traditional, but they were Native people that who were incarcerated,
Mm.
and they only found their spirituality while they were in prison, which is a unique twist, I guess. And it was a very raw and hard, and I guess a um, struggle. Was there was a struggle within the system of the people that were incarcerated, and it was an interesting. For me, it was an interesting fact when one of the inmates said, "I had to come to prison to find my freedom,"
Mm.
which is a very interesting statement. So we did that, and then I had another series called Wabanagi. It profiled Native communities, Native people, artists, musicians, elders, events within Atlantic Canada in Native communities. And why I did that was a lot of people would tell me uh, we would like to come to a Native community and meet the people and what have
Mm.
you, but they were very intimidated, I guess, by just not knowing, never not knowing Native people. And so I said, well, why not? Why don't we bring the community out to them?
Mm.
And that's how that was the nuance of the show. And we did 3 seasons of that as well. And during that time is when I started producing and directing the Sacred Sundance, the transfer of a ceremony. And that was a
The one that I
challenging,
was saying. Yes.
yeah, that was very challenging because it's a 1 hour documentary, feature length documentary by the National Film Board of Canada. And the challenge was that we were going to do a documentary. We were going to tell a story um, and try to portray that story without being able to film the ceremony.
The ceremony. Yeah.
which was the challenging part. So
Mhm.
um, we had to get creative. We had to find ways that we can tell a story. And at that time, they were going to transfer the Sundance ceremony from our community, Ilzebuktuk, to Geskabegia.
Mhm.
So they had sort of like a marathon to transfer some of the sacred items to the next community. So
from
we
from
use that
from
as the
from
parallel.
from northeast of New Brunswick to Quebec.
Yes, yeah, and it was we use that as the parallel to telling the story and introducing some of the teachings, I guess, from the elders that would be your elders as far as your spiritual elders is concerned. Um, we had William Nevins, the Sundance chief. We had Keith Chief Moon. We had Bernard Jerome, to name a few, and they
You,
really
yes,
shared a lot of
yeah,
really good wisdom. And I think that film is still available online, and
it
I
is.
think a lot of people can
It is
learn from
actually.
that
I
stuff.
just checked. I just want to tell everybody. The film is available, and you can watch it. And if you can't find it, go and get it. The National Film Board of Canada has the film.
Yeah.
But Brian, you did beautiful. Just what you said. The challenge was great. Not actually getting the images of the actual ceremony. Uh, and I was there, and not, but however, being able to transfer that feeling of what is happening, and this transfer from this ceremony to a new place, and expanding it.
Mhm.
Um, Brian, I want to go back to the what I read, and somewhere else you say that I'm a little bit torn here, because I see you and your family as uh, those who very well connected to their history, to their people, to their community, um, speak the language, but at the same time, you're saying that we've been living a life that has been boxed in. You use the word boxed in, and separated. What do you mean by that?
I mean by you almost have to live it in order for you to understand or comprehend the what I'm saying. And here in Canada,
Mhm.
we were all um, removed from our encampments. We were removed from the shores. We were removed from the forests, and we were placed in parcels, postage size stamped parcels of land.
Mm.
And at the time, they were called Indian reservations. So basically, we were placed on these reservations, and we were all given identification cards with numbers on them. This is who we were. They're called band numbers. At the time, we didn't understand the concept of the boundaries of a reservation. We always we were people who traveled with the seasons.
Mhm.
We followed the fish, we followed the moose, we followed the deer, we followed nature. The land was our home. So the concept of Indian reservations was not was foreign to us. When we were inside the boxes, um, Christianity was introduced,
Mhm.
and it was basically forced upon us, and really driven into us that that's what was going to save us, and that if we worshipped anybody else, it was evil. And even sacred words in our language have since become utilized in the opposite manner, where something sacred is now evil.
Mm.
So throughout history, that's probably I'm probably talking about 200 years ago that this whole system started. So our we've been indoctrinated with that mentality that that's where we belong. Um, so that's what I mean by boxed in.
Mm-hmm.
And when I say we have to think outside the box, I firmly believe that if we can believe how who we were prior to the installation of Indian reserves in our that placed our people.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's who we are. We are the Mi'kmaq nation who were recognized as a nation. That's why the treaties were signed with our people, because treaties can only be signed by nations. So when the Europeans arrived and they saw us as a force, um, they felt it necessary to enter into treaties. And in Atlantic Canada, we have peace and friendship treaties. At that time, they said, in exchange for peace and friendship, if you sign these treaties with the British Crown, we will guarantee that you will have the same freedoms you had, and we will protect your rights as the Mi'kmaq um, forever. We would be given a percentage of any royalties that were collected through our resources and our land and taxes that the colonizers
We're
gathered
voting.
through our land, the use of our land and our resources.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
I
After a
like I like
few
how
years, that didn't happen.
Mhm. I like how you put it, Brian. It really, I have done a lot of research and study, and as you know, I've been close to your community for a long time now. Um, but you just gave me a different perspective on it. The fact that the crown signed treaties, it's very clear that we're talking about a nation that was very well established in that land. We're not talking about a small groups of people that they didn't have any, not established society. But the fact that this was it said it that's a clear indication that we're talking about a very definite nation, same as the rest of the treaties throughout the Turtle Island. I really like how you put it. It really opened up a different way of looking at it for me. Before we get into that more, Brian, I just want to say to our audience and people who are watching now or later, we're talking about things that are usually filtered and censored. We're talking very open and uncensored, unfiltered conversation here. Please share. This is very important. These conversations are very important. If you can't share right now, if you don't want to share right now, at least talk about them. Talk about at dinner table. Talk to your friends. But if you can right now, please share. Let's get more people on these conversations. Brian, let's go back to the issue of the treaties. Just recently, again, the treaties are being broken. The way I see it, I see it as breaking the treaties by Canada, and by stopping and endangering the lives of the Mi'kmaq when they go on the water to fish. They're threatening their life. They're committing act of terrorism and breaking the treaties. Things may be quiet right now, but and I know and everybody know that nothing's really settled with those who keep breaking these treaties. What is your perspective on these treaties and why Canada keeps breaking them?
See, the problem they have is that Canada is a nation with no land base.
Mhm.
Canada is a nation with no language. They came here and they formed the country of Canada, and they drafted their own constitution, and they basically started making their own laws. They started operating a business, and not not comprehending that they may have to address the original people that lived here, and the situations that might arise. So early on, they devised these policies that would eventually eliminate any um, existing rights that the original people might have had. So basically, they were going to Canadianize us. And that's what the intent of was with the Indian residential schools, where they literally took children from our communities and placed them in church-run, government-funded schools. And their mission was to remove.
Took them by force. I think it's important to say
took them by force, basically
from their parents,
kidnapping.
from their family.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Some
And
of them
this is not ancient history.
No, this is very recent history.
Yeah.
The last residential school closed in 1991, I think it was. So their mission was to, and I'll quote the quote, they were going to beat the Indian out of us.
Yeah.
And to assimilate us into society. Mm-hmm. The mission, I think, was to justify the theft of lands. How can you justify the birth of a country based on stolen lands? So there's a certain amount of guilt in that. Mm-hmm. And the mainstream society is not comfortable to hear that. Why can't we all be Canadians together? Is the mentality. The problem is that we, the first people of this land, are Mi'kmaq first. That's who we are. That's what our language. In our language, when I say Intlisudi, is that's my voice. That's the tongue of my mother. The language that my mother was born with. And that stems back all the way throughout. That's why when we say Msid Nogama after ceremony, you're saying all my relations. So you've acknowledged thousands of years of your ancestors that make up who you are today. So fast forward a couple hundred years, there's a process that's ongoing right now. It's driven by the federal government. It's called the New Treaty Process. Mm-hmm. And it's an exercise that the First Nation communities are being, they're not forced, but they're being encouraged to entertain. So there's 35 steps in this process. And at the end of the 35 steps, the government will have this document and say, this is the new treaty. So they're gonna do away with the old treaties that have been recognized and affirmed by the Supreme Court of Canada. But the problem is that Canada, the country of Canada, cannot give up any of its authority and have another order of government or another level of government within its boundaries. So the terminology they use is finality. So they say that at the end of this process, it would be absolute and it would be final. That we would give up all rights and title to the land.
Beyond that conversation.
Yeah. So yeah. What if they succeed in doing that? We can no longer say that they stole our lands because we've just given it away, or we've just basically finalized a real estate deal. But for a lot of our the diehard people who believe in the inherent rights of our people, the actual the original treaties are the ones that are sacred. They're the ones that were signed by our ancestors to protect us, because it affirms and reaffirms and confirms that the existing rights we had prior to the arrival of the new man are rights that should be that will exist as long as the moon and stars shall shine. And that's the terminology that's used in the treaties. I often say that by entering into this new treaty process, are we putting out the sun and the stars? Because you want that finality. They want just the concept of inherent rights to end, and they want us to be Canadian. It's a
But
very,
Brian,
very
everybody I have spoken to on this program and others, in other private conversations, it seems to me that the Mi'kmaq are very clear that there will be no negotiations. Everybody's very clear about this, whether it's young people or older people or middle-aged like yourself and from different walks of life. It doesn't seem to be there doesn't seem to be a widespread as before. That I think the Mi'kmaq are very clear about this right now. They're saying no, the treaties are very clear, and there's nothing needs to be renegotiated. Am I hearing something different from you? Are you saying that there's a big group of people that they want to enter into, like for example with the fishery situation? Do they want to enter into a new negotiation?
is a very complex issue, because
Mm-hmm.
it stems from when the government was formed, and they had to deal with I'm going to refer to it as the Indian problem that they refer to. They had to figure out, how do we deal with this? So they formed the Department of Indian Affairs.
Mm-hmm.
It's just an arm of the federal government. Within that, they introduced a political structure within the Indian reserves. So they at one point, it used to be Indian agents that would control the reserves, the reservations. Later on, they use our people, and they introduced an election system to elect chiefs and councils.
Mm-hmm.
Now, there is nothing traditional, there is nothing spiritual about the organization or the structure of the political system within our communities. It is basically the same as a municipal mayor and councillor system in any community, in any city in Canada. The only thing is that they are the government for each First Nation community.
Mm-hmm.
The Mi'kmaq Nation, which is made up of the 35,000 people I told you about,
Mm-hmm.
is now divided amongst 33 communities, each one having a chief, each one having different agendas, different ways of dealing with government. They're dealt with on an individual basis, rather than all of us being governed by one.
One voice.
The traditional system was, we had our Grand Council,
Mm-hmm.
we had our Grand Chief, we had 7 district councils, and each one of these captains would go to the communities,
Mm-hmm.
and it was a hereditary system, and they would bring the concerns of the nation in their territory, in their regions, and bring it to the Grand Council, and they would meet on these issues, whether it's healthcare, taxation, education, whatever it was. They would deal with it, and they would come up with one voice, one answer, and that would be basically the law of what they've decided on. Right now, we are governed by an arm of the federal government. So we've been splintered, we've been divided, and the government uses money. So some of the smaller communities don't have as much money as the larger communities, which is divvied up on a pro capita basis. So when the government around the election time comes around and says, we can give you money for 5 new houses, we can give you money for this, we can give you money for that. If you're in there on a 2-year term and getting paid as a salary for being chief, you're going to want to extend that a little bit. So the government dangles the carrot, and you're tempted to sign this. Okay, I'll accept this, whether it's $1 million, 5 million, whatever it is. But whenever the government gives you something, they always take something back.
Mm-hmm.
So there is no cohesion. There is no solidarity amongst our communities. There is no one vision. You have 33 visions.
But Brian, what I'm saying is that no, I understand, and perhaps in the past we saw this more than now. I think I think Canada is facing a very different situation these days. That's what I'm saying, and I have heard, in here in this program, from young men, young women. I heard that they're working towards self-government. We're seeing chiefs from this, even though there might be small in numbers, these reserves, they're standing up to the whole thing. They're saying, my people, even though it might be 500 or 2,000, we have this treaty and we're going to stay by it. And the numbers are growing. That's what I'm saying. I'm saying that the situation is very different. I think Canada's facing is something very different now than before.
Shaheen, you're right. The problem is the term self-government it's a very attractive term when you're sitting on the side of the table. It sounds like it's a positive thing. And what we actually need is self-determination. Self-determination would give us back the authority to decide for us what we need. Right now, we, in our First Nation communities, we suffer the highest alcohol and drug abuse. Mm-hmm. We have the highest rates of suicide per capita in Canada. We have housing that's in third world conditions. Yeah. How are we to stand up and be proud? Yes, we might have self-government, mm-hmm. but that self-government only deals with the administration part of our existence.
Sure. Yeah.
We need our spiritual leaders.
Yeah. No,
we need our spiritual leaders. We need our spiritual traditional elders, mm-hmm. to be the voice of our nation. Absolutely. And we need to speak as a nation. Mm-hmm. We need to rise up and say, no, our land is not for sale. Our treaty rights are not for sale. Mm-hmm. We're going to negotiate for what you owe us from the past. When you signed the treaties, it was an agreement that we would be the wealthiest landowners of the land. Yeah. Instead, we're the poorest. So there's a lot of wrongs that have to be corrected. Correct. There's a lot of debt that needs to be paid back to the First Nations people.
Mm-hmm. I think everybody would agree. Sorry, go ahead.
Address that first, mm-hmm. and then we'll move on. But
no, I think everybody would agree with you, Brian. I think you're absolutely correct. I think those who are after political change would agree that what you're saying, and which is the subject of your book, the issue of the identity. and coming out of that box and taking care of the self. I think everybody would agree with. I don't think anybody's. Yes, I agree with you. Absolutely. I think all of these changes need to happen on all of these different levels. Absolutely. Brian, let's go back. I want to read something else. Um,
Yeah.
um, let's go back to where we started, which is at the heart of what we're talking about. Here you say, I try to be honest, yet concise. I try to be reflective, yet hopeful. I try to express my dreams and visions through words that may resonate with people that feel they lack something, yet feel they belong in a soul group, if you will. I try to bring that soul group to a like mindedness of thought and emotion. I try to bring the world closer together. And you start this by identifying that I have to start from knowing who I am. And I like the example you used, Msinogama. Every time I hear a Mi'kmaq, they always say all my relations, not just some of my relations, but it's important to say all of my relations. And here you're saying that that's what you want. You want to work and try your best to bring the world closer together. But you're saying you have to start from your own home, from your own community. Please expand on that for us, Brian.
Well, just from my personal experience, when I said that growing up not knowing who I was,
Mm,
I was probably 26 years old before I witnessed my first traditional ceremony, and it wasn't really a ceremony. It was a powwow basically.
mm,
I went there and I got a taste or a hint of of something that woke up inside of me when I heard the drumming and the chanting. It was as if something woke up in my blood,
mm,
and I just went for a couple hours and I left. Went back to my normal life, and then a couple of years later, um, I was introduced to a sweat lodge ceremony,
mm,
and I went, and I can clearly see, even though it was dark,
mm,
I can see who was in there and where they were sitting,
mm,
and it was as if it was that proverbial light that came on, and ever since that time, I started knowing who I was. I started being comfortable of who I was, and I started being proud of who I was.
mm,
And by me going through that, it helped me relate to other people, other nations. I was no longer bound by racism or prejudice or whatever it was that prevented me from going out there and being myself.
mm,
I was no longer bound by that box. I was a Mi'kmaq whether I was in the box or outside the box, and to me that helped me um, spread the word, I guess, of who the Mi'kmaq people are. But by me doing that, I also had to accept who everybody else was.
mm,
You see, because we always say respect our ways, but we also have to respect their ways. So And I only like I don't preach. I don't force anything on anybody. If I have something that somebody can use to help themselves, by all means, use it. You don't have to believe everything I say because I'm only expressing my own experiences. But throughout this process, it's unbelievable how many people have told me that the words that I share on social media resonated with them, or that they needed to hear that at a certain point.
Mm.
And I started to realize that I wasn't only reaching my people, our people, I was also reaching on a broader level. It was people from every race that were listening to my words, which I didn't realize until after that. I have to be careful what I say because people are listening. Um, so with that, I realized that there was a responsibility in how I use my words. After a few years using social media, a friend of mine convinced me that the words that I'm expressing are valuable and are needed, and that they should be compiled in a book and shared. I never thought that I would be an author, or like I said, I don't like to bring a spotlight to myself. But a lot of these words are through visions and through meditation, and I would get these messages. Somebody referred to them as downloads, and when I would just jot those words down, and sometimes I wouldn't even edit. I would just type them and send them off, not even rereading or editing or whatever. I just expressed it and sent it away. And going through this process of writing this book, I'm like, I couldn't even believe some of the stuff that I wrote because it was from somewhere else.
Mm.
And so a lot of it is, to me, it was direct from the source.
Mm.
Um, so I felt obligated to share a lot of that. And so that's what I mean by hoping to bring the world closer. Um, Hoping that we can, I guess, try to understand each other, try to be kind to one another, try to be compassionate to one another, accept one another, um, to make this world a better place. You know
Mhm.
what I mean? It's there's a lot of crap out there, and if you look for it, you'll find it.
Absolutely.
But
What I really appreciate, Brian, is that you're not imposing anything in your conversation and what you're writing. You're just saying, this is who I am, and this is what happened to me, and this is how I got out. And having a very humanitarian view on the world, yet being authentic and being very clear as where you're grounded and where you're stuck to that land that you're sitting right now, and your family and all your relations. I really appreciate that. That's a beautiful thing. That being able to talk about things that relate to all humans, but still being authentic to who you are, and where you're from, and your own, the language that the mother spoke to you, and without imposing it on anybody. Brian, tell us a little bit more about the book. I'm gonna put the link. Where can we get the book? So the book is called Between Two Words. I think from our conversation, it explains why the book is called this, Between Two Words. That word that you were saying that was boxed in, and the word that you broke through, and you saw, no, is the whole world. I can be who I am, not just inside this box, but out there in that whole world. The book is called Between Two Worlds. Uh, if you have the book handy, please show us the cover and tell us where we can get it and where people can get it, and then I will put the link in the in the video that will live on YouTube, on my YouTube channel.
I don't actually have a I don't have a
You
copy
just
here.
got boxes and
I
boxes of
have some in the truck. I can go get it, but
no, no, it's okay. So it's just, but just tell us. I will put a link to. You have put some videos about the book, but tell us where we can get it.
well, right now because of COVID,
Mm.
it's very hard. I can't even have a book launch. I was supposed to have a book launch this
Yeah,
weekend in Fredericton, and
absolutely.
now that's so basically what we're doing now is taking orders.
Uh-huh.
Um, uh, People can e-transfer money, and we'll send them the book. I'm trying to find
So
places that
to
may
you
that
directly,
pardon me.
like people have to come to you directly.
Yes,
Okay,
they can
so
hit me
we'll
up
put
on
that information in the link. Okay.
yes, and on like they can hit me up on Facebook, and I can make arrangements to ship the book to them.
Okay.
We're also trying to find depots in here in Atlantic Canada that would want to carry that may want to carry the book.
Mhm.
I've gotten some inquiries in Maine, so gradually, I think within the next 2 3 weeks, we're hoping to be able to make it more available in more venues. So, but there's a lot of interest. There's a lot of inquiries through people who've read my stuff on Facebook and
Mhm.
social media and that type of
Yeah.
thing. I mean, I'm really, really overwhelmed, I guess, by the interest.
Yeah.
Like I said, I don't like to put that spotlight on myself because I don't really feel that I'm
Well,
worthy
we
of
want
it.
to see more of you, Brian. We want to hear from more from you. I really enjoy looking at the photos you take, or sometimes you put short videos. I really enjoy them. You're a great photographer. I wish you could share more with us. Um, Brian, it was a pleasure. I thought I knew you, but I didn't. You really opened my eyes to many things today, and I thank you for that. You're a great person, and you represent a very great community, a great nation. I think you know. Uh, Perhaps that's why you have so much respect amongst the people that I've seen. Um, and all the best to you and all your family. I really appreciated that you took the time to have this conversation with me.
Thank you for having me, Shane. It's
Yeah,
very nice to see you again.
yeah, absolutely. It's very nice to see you. I wish these times will be over soon, and I can come to New Brunswick. And the our ceremony didn't happen this year in person, but yes, it's very nice to see you. If there's anything else you would like to share, I think people would like to hear something to wrap up about your thoughts about the whole treatise, about your book, and about just I think that last thing I was reading from you.
Well, I think I would just like to send a message to if there's any young people that are listening out there. Try to find an elder. Try to find somebody that you respect, and
Hmm.
try to learn as much as possible from them. Try to understand the treaties and the intent of the treaties and how important they are, how sacred they are, because these are actual actions from our ancestors who saw the need to protect and always strive to be proud of who you are. Try to
Yeah.
understand who you are, and from there you can expand and you can grow, and you can realize that it's a great big world out there, and that it's beautiful, and that we don't need to be stuck in a hole that prevents us from spreading our wings. And so we need to preserve who we are, and be proud of who we are, and and show the resiliency of our people, Um, we've been here for thousands of years, and we're still here.
Mhm.
And the language of our ancestors is still being spoken. It's still being,
Mm.
but we need to preserve that because
Yeah.
once we lose that, then we begin to lose ourselves. And once we lose that, there's no place to go back to go recover it because this is our homeland. This is our home territory. This is the only place that Mi'kmaq people exist. So we need to protect that. We need to preserve that, and we need to make sure that we're vigilant in protecting and and by learning who we are, learning the treaties, learning the history, learning the struggles of our people. Only then can we fight for the preservation of our people.
Absolutely.
Because you can't fight something that you don't understand.
We don't know it.
So we have to do that. We have to make sure that we are fighting for our salvation, really. So
Yeah.
I can't stress that enough to the young people that are listening, um, because that's what they have to do.
Yeah. And I think that's for all of us. Thank you for that, Brian. I think that's for all of us, and that's for all people in all nations. I can say this about my own people. I'm an immigrant to Canada from Iran, and we have a lot of issues, a lot of similar issues, and we can only move forward, like you said, uh, if we know what happened in the past. And then that's why it's important that we sit down with those who are older than us, and sit down with them if they have a story, if they have a something to say, or just to go and say hello and see how they're doing and see if they need anything. I think it can be as simple as that, making sure that we take care of those who are older than us. Sometimes it may just be for absolutely no particular reason, but just the fact that we owe them something. They came before us, and they helped us to be who we are, whether it's the community or just my parents. um, yeah, thank you for that, Brian. Yeah.
Thank you, Shane.
Thank you, everybody. You heard it. Please share and talk. These are important issues. You all know how important these conversations are. Please share and please talk about it. You can. This is gonna live on my YouTube channel. If you put Shaheen Sayadi, you will find it. I will put the link here too, and you can hit Brian for the book. Because of the COVID situation right now, you can't get it from bookstores or anywhere else. You have to go straight to him. And again, thank you very much, Brian. Thank you, everybody. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.